This is Armed American Radio.
If they want to take my guns, they're going to have to bring a station wagon and a whole lot of friends, because I'm not giving them anything.
From the Kahr Firearms Group studio
At the Patriot Mobile Communication Center.
on the SIG Sauer Platinum microphone.
Mark, we know they want to take our guns, and now we're going to make them eat it.
Proudly presented to you by X Insurance.
X Insurance.
Here is your host of Armed American Radio, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting for your rights, Mark Walters.
Oh, the Monster Cast is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. Armed American Radio's Monster Cast begins right now on hundreds of radio stations around the nation, all four corners. Welcome in to the Kahr Firearms Group studios. Mark Walters in front of this powerful SIG Sauer microphone in the Patriot Mobile Communication Center, and it is all being brought to you by the great X Insurance. Greg in Dallas, Texas, how you doing, brother? Here we are on a Sunday. You ready to start the week in rock and roll? With a lot to cover.
Here we go. Sunday Gun Day got here quick.
It certainly did. It always does. Greg, I'll let you tell people where to watch us on all the available platforms and where to participate in the chat. We'll get started. We have one quick segment with Mr. Gottlieb, followed by Cam Edwards. Go for it.
Sure, if you want to find us on YouTube, Rumble, or Fascist Book, just search for Armed American Radio with Mark Walters, at AAR Mark over on X. The usual suspects are armedamericanradio.org or .com. On the right-hand side of that website, you will see a menu icon. Just give that a click, and when that window opens up, you can select that Watch Live option. If you're driving, please hit that Listen Live link. And if you missed any previous episode of this program, head on over to the podcast link. If you'd like to join our live chat, all you have to do is head on over to your app store, grab the Telegram messaging app, create your profile, and search for Armed American Radio Conversations.
And that will do it. That will bring you in. Welcome to the Armed American Radio Network. Let's get started. The great Alan Gottlieb, founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. Alan Gottlieb, a welcome home is in order for you. How are you, my friend?
A bit tired, to be honest. It was a long trip back from Germany.
I bet it was. In that time change, and you got the 3 hours above me, it's rough. I'm just curious, when did you get back from the IWA show? And I do want to cover that with you quickly.
I got back late last night.
Okay.
I had initially started by train from Nuremberg, Germany to Munich, a plane from Munich to San Francisco, and a plane from San Francisco to Seattle. It was a long journey.
That is definitely a long journey. So let me thank you in advance on behalf of myself and many listeners around the country for taking time to be here today with us. So briefly tell us about the IWA show. What was the takeaway? How does it compare to SHOT Show? What's different? What do we need to know before we get into the meat here?
Well, it's not quite as big as SHOT, but it's the second biggest firearms industry shooting sports trade show in the world. And it's more dominated by foreign country competitors rather than SHOT, which is more dominated by American companies, which, by the way, attend IWA as well. The important takeaway really was what Julianne Personnel, my wife, and I were working on more than anything with the international community, is the fact that we might have shooting sports canceled at the 28 Olympics, which is going to be in Los Angeles. And the International Olympic Committee seems like they want to get rid of it. And once Olympic competition with firearms is gone, it's never going to come back. So we're working a lot with the international community on that.
Alan, that's a popular sport in the Olympics. It really, truly is, and it's fun to watch. And I hope we're successful in that regard and keeping that alive. Now, a couple of things with you, because we only have you for one segment today, and I'm going to let you get some sleep, or try to anyway, because I know you, and you're going to go right back to work tomorrow, and you should take some time off, but you won't. I'm just saying. Anyway, the SCOTUS assault weapons ban case was heard, correct me if I'm wrong, again on Friday this past week. Am I correct?
Well, heard may be the wrong word.
Conference.
It went to conference.
Went to conference, right.
And the justices were deciding if they were going to keep the case, take the case, just said that they were not going to take it. We should know maybe Monday, Tuesday, what's the situation with the Snopes case out of Maryland. This is the sixth time they've held it over in conference. So they know it's there. They've been debating it, and that's my hope that they take it.
Can if you don't mind, I'm going to make a prediction. The longer it lingers, the better I begin to feel about it, because it has been there for so long. My gut feel is if they wanted to get rid of it and not grant it cert, they would have already done that. Now, I could be way off on that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just giving you my gut feeling. It's my personal opinion. I have a feeling we get good news tomorrow, Alan. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about this week. But again, I could be wrong. Did you care to weigh in on that prediction before we go in another direction?
I hope you're right. There's a good logic for it. They could have been just holding it because there's other gun cases as well, and they want to see what else is percolating through the courts before they decide to take it. So we'll see. But I feel good about it, but cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Cautiously optimistic.
Again, the reason, Mark, is that there's over 7,000 cases that are appeals to the Supreme Court every year, and the U.S. Supreme Court can only take between 200 and 300 total cases. And there's an awful lot germinating out of cases filed suits against the Trump administration, which are going to get priority and preference over anything. And with a lot of those things, we could get bounced or bumped. We could get held over for another year. They could just keep it on their agenda and not dismiss it. So we'll see. But I hope we hear Monday that they're just going to take the case in the next term.
Yeah, and that's the key. That was where I was going to go next, because we had Adam Kraut, executive director of the Second Amendment Foundation, on in your place last week, and he reminded everybody that if they take this, it is for the next term. So we are not going to expect a decision on this come summer, but this will be 2026, correct?
Well, they could hear it in late 25 in the October term. You wouldn't get a decision probably until 26. But if they take it, it's going to get heard, in the October term later this year.
But a decision would likely come down around midsummer of 26, right? So we've got a little bit of waiting to do here. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to be patient. Keep your fingers crossed that my guess is right on that. We shall soon see. Now, in additional news, possible maybe some future attention by Supreme Court. Debate over whether to ban handgun sales to teens could soon head to the Supreme Court. This was a Fox News piece yesterday. You were quoted extensively in this. Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick background. The Supreme Court may soon weigh in on whether people younger than 21 have the right to buy handguns, a decision that could upend decades of federal restrictions and reshape the nation's gun laws. And Alan, you are quoted, whenever there's decisions that cross each other, you have a much better chance of getting a writ of cert at the Supreme Court, said Alan Gottlieb. Now, of course, that meaning split decisions. Where do we stand on that? Because we're there now. Are you hopeful? And is this something that we could probably knock out in the near future?
Well, yeah, the Second Amendment Foundation has several of these suits filed, and these are all what the Fox News piece was about. And there's, a circuit that said no, that young adults don't have the right to bear arms. And other circuits have said, yes, there is a right to keep arms for 18 to 20-year-olds, young adults. And so we have split circuits, which is a good thing to get things to the Supreme Court, because you can't have it legitimate in one part of the country where 18 to 20-year-olds can buy handguns and in other places where they can't. And considering a lot of these laws are challenging federal laws, the federal prohibition, some of them are challenging state prohibitions. The one I love the best, Mark, just real quickly, is in West Virginia. Only one, and the government's appealing it. In West Virginia, a young adult can buy a handgun, but he can't buy it from a licensed dealer under federal law. So he can buy it on the street with no background checks, but he can't buy it from a licensed dealer with a background check. That shows you how absurd these laws are.
Yeah, and what's odd, of all states, in West Virginia. Now, I understand the nuance there, but it doesn't make sense to the average Joe as to why that would be the case, particularly when the other side is always harping on background checks, right? So this is something...
Well, it shows how intellectually dishonest the other side is.
Great point. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why these things have got to be cleared up. Alan, under what circumstances should an 18-year-old... I mean, how do they even argue against an 18-year-old? Because this goes back to the 1968 Gun Control Act, which was passed that year, the federal ban that applied to people under age 21 for handgun purchases. I find it very difficult to believe that they could even make that argument today's day and age, that an 18-year-old, because they're essentially saying an 18-year-old is an adult but cannot exercise a right to bear arms in the United States, yet they can go to war, etc. I don't even know how they argue that. I think this is a win for us, but again, it's just going to take time. That's just my gut feeling.
Well, they argue that younger people have more of a tendency to commit crimes than older people. They argue that a young adult's brain isn't fully developed. We even had one judge talk about that he wouldn't let it happen. He ruled against us because when he was young and growing up, some of his friends were stupid and they stuck their hands into farm combines and lost fingers.
Yeah, well, that's a stretch. But, again, I could apply that logic. Now, driving is not a right, obviously. It is a privilege. However, the insurance industry won't let or rental car companies won't let a young adult up to 25 years old rent a car, but we can teach them to drive at 15 and put them behind the wheel of a 3,000-pound automobile at 16. The whole thing is convoluted. It doesn't make sense. Hopefully, we will get this resolved. Alan Gottlieb, go get some rest. You do God's work. God bless you for everything that you do. We're glad you're home safe. Enjoy your day tomorrow and your week, Alan. Armed American Radio's Monstercast will be back with the great Cam Edwards right after the break. Don't go away.
The following segment of Armed American Radio is being brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Visit patriotmobile.com/AAR and use the AAR promo code to get free activation today. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back indeed. You're on the Armed American Radio Network with me, Mark Walters, filling your prescription for freedom here in the Kahr Firearms Group studios, sitting in front of this powerful SIG Sauer microphone. It's all being brought to you by X Insurance from the Patriot Mobile Communication and Command Center. If you are watching the program, this is a Patriot Mobile phone activated. You can do the same thing. Visit patriotmobile.com/AAR. Activate a phone over there and get a month free service, It's easy to do, and many of you have. We appreciate it very much. Welcome back in the studios with me. Let's now go to the great Cam Edwards over at bearingarms.com. Cam and Company. You know Cam. I know Cam. We love Cam. Cam, welcome to the show, brother. It's great to have you here.
Hey, man, always appreciate it, Mark.
Always great to be here with you, brother. So I got a lot to talk with you about, and I really don't even know where to begin, so I'm going to start in Alabama. How about we start in Alabama?
Okay, that sounds good.
You ready? Because you've written a lot of really cool stuff over the past couple of weeks, and I think Alabama is a great place to go with you because it kind of is a good segue into a piece that you wrote about Indiana. So let's go to Governor Kay Ivey. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey called for the legislature to prohibit machine gun conversion devices interstate in her state address earlier this year. Now, Cam, I think we talked about that before because she was banning something or wants to ban something that's already banned under federal law. And the state Senate, as you quote, I quote you, has heeded her demand. On Tuesday, what happened in Alabama?
Well, the Senate voted unanimously to ban these machine gun conversion devices, as well as, basically anything that can increase the rate of fire. I think bump stocks may have been explicitly excluded, but again, this language is pretty vague, Mark. And the fact that this was a unanimous vote in the Senate, right? Mm-hmm. You've got folks who voted for constitutional carry who voted for this bill as well. And in fact, I think the bill sponsor said, I'm pro Second Amendment, but this is about, finding that line, right? And so I think that it is worth talking about, that in a state as strong Second Amendment as Alabama is, a bill to ban, these machine gun conversion devices, which, as you note, are already illegal under federal law. I mean, clearly at the state capitol, clearly among these lawmakers, that is not seen as a quote-unquote gun control bill.
I guess it begs the question, why? Do they feel shielded because of the Heller decision? Do they feel shielded against this by not viewing this as a gun control bill, that Republicans in a pro-gun state, very red state like Alabama, would feel comfortable doing this? And for what reason? And I know we can't get in their head, but let's kind of kick that around a little bit.
Right.
What's your theory on why they feel protected here to do this and go statewide over and above what the federal law, or at least what the federal law already provides for? Why?
I think, Mark, it is as simple as full auto is still the third rail of Second Amendment politics, right? And as much as, ardent Second Amendment supporters want to see the NFA done away with, we want to see the Hughes Amendment repealed, for Republicans at large, that's not a priority. And in fact, that may be a line too far, right? They'll defend your semi-autos, but, machine guns have, I think, an even worse rap than suppressors do in terms of the court of public opinion. And so, yeah, I think it boils down to these lawmakers feel safe in casting that vote. And in large part, I think they feel safe because there probably are not a lot of constituents who are reaching out and saying, don't ban these switches, vote down this bill, let it be illegal at the federal level, but keep the state law the way it is.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, we'll never get into their heads. But I wonder if there's something else in play here. And I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just mentioning it because it's in my head. Is there something else in play here as to why they would even want to do this? It doesn't seem to make any sense to me why they would want to do this in the first place.
Well, okay, so you gotta look a little bit at Alabama politics, right? And the mayor of, I think it's Birmingham, Randall Woodfin, has been making a lot of noise. Birmingham had, I think, a record high number of homicides last year. And he's been blaming that on constitutional carry. He's been blaming it on, the rise in these switches that are found at, in guns that are recovered. And so he's made that an issue, right? And I think that one of the reasons why the ban on these switches was, let's call it popular. I mean, it was a unanimous vote, is because they rejected his call to repeal constitutional carry. So I think that this allows these lawmakers to say, listen, we're listening to the other side, right? We're listening to the concerns of people who live in Birmingham. We don't think it's the gun's fault, but if you're putting this little switch in your pistol, we think, you should go to state prison. We should have to refer these cases to the U.S. attorney. I can see this being billed as sort of a tough on crime measure and not as a gun control bill, as opposed to, repealing constitutional carry, which I think really would have Alabamans, no pun intended, up in arms.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen in the state of Alabama. Alabama's an interesting state. Alabama has more permit holders per capita than any other state in the nation. So I don't see that being an issue. How they're equating constitutional carry with this, again, obviously it's a stretch, but whatever it is, maybe they feel they can appease the other side, which I don't know why they feel like they have to do that in a state like Alabama.
Right.
But again, we're talking about politics, and it doesn't make sense a lot of the times. Let's jump that segue over to Indiana now, and thank you for humoring me on the Alabama part, because it is a good segue into Indiana. In Indiana, you have a piece up. Indiana court says Second Amendment doesn't include machine guns. Now, this is an interesting case, Cam. Like you, I've looked at this. And this was a kid by the name of Jacob McGee. He was 18 years old when he was caught with a gun equipped, quoting you, with an illegal auto sear converting the pistol from semi-auto to full auto. Had argued that his right to keep and bear arms includes the ability to possess a machine gun, but earlier this month, the appellate court issued an opinion turning away his challenge to existing law. And that was a decision that came down on February 19th. You wrote about it extensively here. And the judge in this particular case said, the overwhelming number of federal district courts and federal appellate courts that have uniformly concluded that the Second Amendment's plain text doesn't protect machine guns because they're dangerous and unusual weapons. Now, that's key here, dangerous and unusual weapons, because that takes us back to Heller, that takes us back to McDonald, that takes us back to Bruin, etc. Dangerous and unusual. Apparently, this judge agreed and said, therefore, the challenge thus fails. So we have splits because we have other courts that said machine guns are protected. So let's kind of break this down and get into the nuts and bolts here.
30.
So I think what we're seeing here is a little bit of the Supreme Court at odds with itself, right? You go back to Heller and you find that dangerous and unusual language. Not unusually dangerous, not dangerous or unusual, right, but unusual and dangerous.
Okay, Cam, let me stop you there. Let me stop you there at dangerous, and unusual, and dangerous, because we're going to take a break now. And ladies and gentlemen, we come back. Cam, I'm sorry to have to cut you off, but when we come back from the break, we want to dig back into the meat of this, because there's a lot going on here as to the way this is worded and what it will mean for all of us going down the road in what we believe is a pro-gun Supreme Court. We have rifts in the circuits on these cases and others. Some of them we were just talking about with Mr. Gottlieb, 18 to 20-year-olds, and, of course, the assault weapons ban case in Maryland. We'll get into all this with Cam when we come back right after the break.
Hey, it's Andy Hoosier, the voice of reason on KQAM, Wichita's Big Talker, and you're tuned into the Armed American Radio Network. Now let's get back to the man himself, Mark Walters.
Yeah, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and to our affiliates around the country, hundreds of you. WRCM, New York City, we love you guys. Welcome to the program. It's great to be with you up in the Big Apple. Yeah, the Big Apple up there on the island and booming out all over that big city. Well, you guys got some work to do, but that's besides the point. Hey, guys, make sure to check out all of our partners. You can find them all at armedamericanradio.com. And all of those local partners that support the broadcast in your local area, make sure to support all of them as well. Way too many to mention here on the program. But you can find them all at armedamericanradio.com, including Barrel Buddy, barrelbuddy.com, barrelbuddy.com. Clean your guns the modern way. Pitch those old patches, okay? Use Barrel Buddy. 2 passes, done. Right at the range, before you even put the thing back in your holster, back in the bag, you've got your gun cleaned, and you know it's clean. And no mess, no muss, no fuss, no nothing. BarrelBuddy.com has you covered. Cam Edwards, welcome back to the Kahr Firearms Group studios with me, brother. It's always a pleasure to have you here. So let's go back to dangerous and unusual, because those are the operative words here, Cam.
Right. And this is basically the phrase that, these judges are using to hang their hat on the idea that machine guns are not protected by the Second Amendment. And some judges are using that to say that semi-autos are not protected by the Second Amendment, right? Now, they are abusing that phrase, and they're twisting dangerous and unusual, which, listen, when we're talking about firearms, every firearm is a dangerous weapon, right? So really the key there is unusual. And you've seen some judges, twist this to say, well, it's actually the standard is unusually dangerous. And, oh, my gosh, wouldn't you know it, AR-15s are unusually dangerous, right, because they can, shoot a bunch of bullets out in a very short amount of time, and therefore we have to treat them like machine guns. And those judges are helped a little bit by dicta in Heller when Antonin Scalia wrote about and gave an example of, dangerous and unusual weapons. He referred to M16s and the like. Right. So he called out full autos. And we've seen some courts say that, well, AR-15s are like M16s. Semi-automatic rifles are like fully automatic rifles. So, okay, they're not protected by the Second Amendment either. Right. Then you get into Bruin, and you get the Bruin test. And the Supreme Court says, well, you've got to look at the text of the Second Amendment. And then you have to look at the history of firearm regulation and the national tradition of gun ownership in this country. And then, Mark, I think it becomes a little bit harder to justify these bans, right? Because, really, you've got to go until the 20th century until you see entire classes of firearms banned because of, capacity or because of how fast they can shoot. That wasn't an issue in 1791. That wasn't an issue in 1868. The rise of the repeating revolver, the rise of the repeating rifle, none of those technological advances prompted a ban on those firearms. And so, I think it is an interesting conundrum because the court has basically given judges around the country a bit of conflicting advice, right? And I think a lot of judges they don't want to have that internal debate. They don't want to have that discussion. They don't want it to be an open question. So they're just seizing on that language from Heller and saying, well, machine guns are dangerous and unusual. Antonin Scalia talked about that, specifically talked about M16. So we're just going to go with what we think the status quo is, what we think Supreme Court precedent is, and we're going to keep these guns outside of the purview of the Second Amendment's protections.
Yeah, and, while Scalia's argument and his opinion in Heller in 08 was brilliant, it left a lot to be desired. He did not step out of the scope of Dick Heller's case for the most part. And as you said, that language in there has become a conundrum. There's no question about it. Now, to go back to McGee's argument in Indiana, this kid had a tough argument right out of the box, I believe, because he possessed something that, well, he bought the gun in a private sale. He was told that the trigger was altered. He claimed that he did not know the alteration of the trigger made it shoot or would make it shoot in full auto mode. Therefore, he didn't willfully violate Indiana law because he was ignorant of what the switch would do. Now, we all know the old saying, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So this kid had an uphill battle to begin with out of the box, did he not?
He did. And he sort of had that two-prong argument, right? Full auto should be protected by the Second Amendment, and even if you don't think that's the case, yeah, I didn't know that I had a machine gun. And the court basically said, look, you should have known. You knew that the gun had been modified. You knew that it had been modified apparently to shoot faster. That alone should have been enough for you to understand that what you possessed was illegal. So, this is one of the problems, Mark, is that, when you look at like what the Second Amendment Foundation does, right, they look really hard at potential plaintiffs. They want to make sure that they have the strongest case forward. When you got somebody who's been busted on these criminal charges, they just want to stay out of jail, right? And so they're going to make these Second Amendment arguments, even if the argument is really, really weak. And a lot of times they're going to have a public defender, and God bless our public defenders, honestly. They do an incredible job, but they're overworked. They don't have a lot of time to spend on any individual case. And I don't think that public defenders, by and large, are the best attorneys to be making these constitutional arguments. So these cases are all double-edged swords, right? Yeah. Because the courts can use these cases to set precedential decisions. And oftentimes, again, the facts are not going to be in our favor, particularly, right? We're not going to have a plaintiff like Dick Heller or Otis McDonald in these cases.
You could have a kid like this who, again, as you said, eloquently so, trying to stay out of jail. In a case like this, sets precedents for the rest of us that we don't need. So, yeah, I understand why he's doing what he's doing. But, again, we're going to have to pay very careful attention to these cases down the road, ladies and gentlemen. These are not something we can sit and let them watch. We've got to watch what's happening with these cases. We have to. I got to take you over now to Bezos and the Washington Post, because you have a great piece up from the 26th a few days back, and there's a lot in it. We could have covered it for the entire hour. I contemplated it, but I had to hit a couple other issues with you as well. Before I go to Bezos, the assault weapons ban case, we were talking with Alan Gottlieb, again, was heard in conference on Friday. It's my opinion they're going to grant this cert. That's my personal opinion. And Cam, as the longer this thing floats out there, I think the better our opportunities get now, where they just would have nixed this thing out of the box. That's my gut feel. Do you think we'll get good news this week before we go to the Washington Post piece you wrote about?
I hope we do. I'm generally in line with your thinking on this, Mark. I think that if it was going to be a denial and then you're going to have a written dissent, there's more than enough time for that dissent to have been written.
Agreed.
Right. I don't think you're going to have a pure curiam opinion, a unanimous opinion of the court, because I don't think that the progressive wing of the court is going to say that semi-automatics are protected by the Second Amendment. So I think you're right. I think the longer this drags out, I think the more likely it is that we do see the Supreme Court grant cert to Snope and perhaps Ocean State Tactical, right? The Rhode Island Magazine ban case, which has been listed for the 7th time, I guess, Friday. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we get good news tomorrow morning. I really am.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful with you. To use Alan's words, cautiously optimistic here. I think I might be leaning a little bit above that for that very reason that you just articulated. I believe the longer it's out there, I think this has been now bouncing around about 8 times. And as Alan pointed out in the previous segment, it's likely this case, if they grant cert, could be heard in October. We're not going to get a decision until summer of 2026, regardless.
30.
Either way. Cam, we've got 30 seconds. When we come back, I want to flip the script over to Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post, because there's a lot of fun stuff going on in this, and you wrote a great piece about it and analyzed it really well. Here's the headline, ladies and gentlemen, as we go to the break. When we come back with Cam Edwards, we'll dig deep into it. Will Bezos' pledge to promote personal liberties in Washington Post opinion pages apply to 2A rights? And that is the question of the day. And there is some indication that, yeah, it might. Cam wrote a great piece. Again, the headline, you can catch it at bearingarms.com. Will Bezos' pledge to promote personal liberties in Washington Post opinion pages apply to 2A rights? We'll break that down and dissect it with Cam Edwards, Cam and Company, bearingarms.com. When we come back from this break. On the flip side, don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher wanting to let you know that the crew of the Desperado Sport Fish in Virginia Beach, Virginia supports Armed American Radio and the Second Amendment, and I'm right there with them. Now back to Mark Walters.
Yeah, you are back. Welcome inside the Kahr Firearms Group studios with me, Mark Walters, filling your prescription for freedom today and every day on hundreds of radio stations around the nation. Here on the SIG Sauer microphone at the Patriot Mobile Communication and Command Center. It's all being brought to you by X Insurance and all of our great partners. If you're watching on camera, this bright red shirt I have is a Bud's Gun Shop shirt. The real deal, budsgunshop.com. Make sure to check them out, our exclusive online retailer, budsgunshop.com. They have everything you need, and you want and need everything they have. I can promise you that. It's like Christmas every day at budsgunshop.com. Make sure to check out all the specials over there, budsgunshop.com. You can find all of our partners at armedamericanradio.com. Cam Edwards, welcome back, brother. Will Bezos has pledged to promote personal liberties in Washington Post opinion pages apply to 2A rights. Well, personal liberties, I mean, it should, shouldn't it? But, boy, you took a deep dive into this. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Again, I was just curious when I saw that announcement on Twitter because, as you well know, Mark, there are a lot of folks on the left who proclaim that they are champions of personal liberties, but oddly, the Second Amendment never seems to apply, right?
Doesn't count for that one.
Right?
Yeah, that never counts.
And look, we know that the Washington Post editorial board is as hostile as it gets to our right to keep and bear arms. So I am curious to see. And Bezos and Amazon have had kind of a mixed track record, right? So Amazon gave $30,000 to a quote-unquote buyback in Seattle a few years ago. But I wrote about this at Bearing Arms because I sort of had a personal connection with this. I mean, back when I was at NRA TV, there was this push to remove NRA TV from Amazon Prime, from Apple TV, from all these streaming services. And you had celebrities who make a living, like Jim Gaffigan, make a living, speaking into a microphone, who were calling for the silencing of pro-Second Amendment voices. Jim Gaffigan actually blocked me on Twitter way back then because I called him out for that, and I guess he didn't like it. I checked.
And he's a funny guy too. I hate that because he's a funny guy. But
he is a funny guy.
He's
I was sad.
funny. Yeah.
I was like, well, that's a shame because you're funny, but you're a hypocrite. But Bezos didn't cave. And they didn't take NRA TV off of the streaming service. So in that sense, I am kind of cautiously optimistic that the newfound appreciation for personal liberties on the editorial page will include our right to keep and bear arms. But I'll say, Mark, if that's going to happen, he's going to have to find some new editorial writers, right? Because the ones that they've got obviously are not big fans of you and I or anybody else owning guns. So that I think is what does this makeover actually look like? Is it just the same old faces who are now saying new things? Unbelievably so, right?
Yeah.
Or is Bezos going to bring in a new cast of characters who genuinely support our Second Amendment rights? At least a couple of them.
Well, it's the proof is in the pudding, right? And as his statement said on X, and you've got it here, we are going to be writing every day in support and defense of two pillars, personal liberties and free markets. We'll cover other topics too, of course, but viewpoints opposing those pillars will be left to be published by others. What other personal liberty is more important than number two, our right to free speech and our right to keep and bear arms? Those are two of the greatest personal liberties that we have in this country, and they have fought against them in their editorial pages anyway for many, many years. So this is going to be fun to watch, Cam. I don't know of any other way to put it, but I guess the proof is going to be in the pudding because guns are in the news, and they're going to continue to be in the news. ATF is making news like crazy, DOJ, Trump's executive order. I don't know how they avoid this. And, you're going to read the Washington Post all of a sudden and see pro-gun editorials? Whoa, that's a shock, bro. That's a shock to the system, Cam. But it could happen.
It really is. And I got to tell you, I've thought about this, Mark. I think what maybe we need to do is conduct an experiment and have two-way voices like yourself, Alan Gottlieb, Maybe I could write an op-ed, but let's start writing some op-eds and submit it to the Washington Post and see what happens.
That's such a great idea.
If they take Snope, the Supreme Court takes Snope, let's write an op-ed about that, right? Oral arguments in Smith & Wesson versus Mexico. Let's see if we could get published in the Washington Post. Let's put Bezos's promise to the test.
Yeah, that's a great point. In fact, I'm going to reach out to you this week. Let's talk further about that off air. I like that idea. And maybe if we bombard them, some of these things do, in fact, get published. Let Bezos put his money, and he's got a lot of it, where his mouth is in those opinion pieces. Good heavens. Let's talk about Mexico briefly. That case is going to be heard by SCOTUS early this month. I don't know the date. Maybe you do. Do you have a date of the oral arguments on the Mexico case? Tuesday?
Yeah, it's going to happen on Tuesday. I'm not sure what time, but it'll be at some point on Tuesday, probably Tuesday morning.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, Mexico is suing U.S. gun manufacturers, blaming U.S. gun manufacturers for their inability to control cartel crime. This is nothing but a sad, pathetic attempt to place blame outside their own failures. Again, that's not a shock to me because that's what Democrats do in Democrat-run cities. They blame their failures on guns and gun control instead of horrific, terrible, sucky policies that allow crime to run rampant. So how do you think this plays out in this course? I don't think Mexico stands a chance on this. They're basically attacking the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act in the United States, saying that, well, it doesn't protect us, and it should, therefore we're suing the manufacturers.
Right. So the Supreme Court is being asked to answer basically two questions. One, whether the firearms industry is, quote, aiding and abetting the cartels by essentially making guns and complying with U.S. gun laws. And two, whether or not the U.S. firearms industry is a proximate cause for the cartel violence. So basically, because these companies are making firearms, does that make the cartels, especially violent? And as you say, this completely ignores Mexico's role in how it's been fighting or not fighting the cartels, right? The hugs, not bullets philosophy of the previous president, now the current president, Claudia Sheinbaum, as well as the corruption in Mexico. We know that some guns that are legally sold to the Mexican military, to Mexican law enforcement, are diverted by corrupt officials within those institutions. Mm-hmm. They are sent to the cartels. We know that this is happening. Mexico doesn't want to talk about that. It's also kind of worth noting that Mexico did not sue SIG Sauer in the lawsuit. They have a pretty big contract with SIG. So they seem to be singling out businesses that they're not doing a lot of business with, which I find very interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, Mark. I think this should be an easy call for the Supreme Court. Because basically what Mexico is asking for, besides the $10 billion in damages, is they're asking for the power to set U.S. gun law and to make U.S. gun law either mirror Mexico's gun control laws or come a lot closer to Mexico's gun control laws than what we have here. Not through legislation, without any regard for the Constitution, but again, trying to use the judicial system to impose these gun controls. You're right. The Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act is meant to stop this very thing from happening. So this should be an easy call for SCOTUS.
It should be, and I would love to see Thomas or Alito get this decision. I'd love to see Thomas write all pro-gun rights decisions, but I have a feeling Mexico is about ready to get blank slapped right upside the head with a rolled-up copy of our U.S. Constitution. Cam Edwards, thank you for being here, brother. I appreciate it very much. BearingArms.com, ladies and gentlemen, and Cam and Company. Cam and Company and BearingArms.com over at Town Hall. Thank you, Cam, for being here. When we come back, Dr. John Lott for the second hour. We have a lot of ground to cover with him as well. We'll see you on the flip side of the break. Don't go away.
American Radio.
If they want to take my guns, they're going to have to bring a station wagon and a whole lot of friends because I'm not giving them anything.
From the Kahr Firearms Group studio
At the Patriot Mobile Communication Center.
on the SIG Sauer Platinum microphone.
Mark, we know they want to take our guns, and now we're going to make them eat it.
Proudly presented to you by X Insurance.
X Insurance.
Here is your host of Armed American Radio, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting for your rights, Mark Walters.
Welcome in. Armed American Radio's Monster Cast continues. Hour 2 underway. Hour 1 in the rearview mirror. If you're just joining us, welcome to the program. If you're coming back, welcome back. Buckle in. The hours fly right by as that previous one just did. Coming to you on hundreds of radio stations here from the Kahr Firearms Group studios in front of this 6-hour microphone. I am Mark Walters, filling your prescription for freedom every single day, 6 days a week on either Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, Monday through Friday, heard every day from 4 to 5 Eastern, 1 to 2 Pacific, and Sundays, 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern, 5 to 8 Pacific on hundreds of radio stations around the nation. Greg, welcome back, brother.
Yeah, here we are, hour 2, Zoom for the first hour.
Zoom. Buckle in, ladies and gentlemen. I'll let you tell people where to watch us on multiple platforms, participate in the chat, and we'll get cracking with Dr. John Lott. We have a lot to cover with John, and we never have enough time, so we'll move as fast as we can. Go ahead, Greg.
Sure, if you want to watch the show, just do a search for Armed American Radio with Mark Walters on Rumble, YouTube, or Fascist Book at AAR Mark on X. The usual suspects are armedamericanradio.org or .com. On the right-hand side of that website, you'll see the menu icon. Just give that a click, and when that window opens up, you can select that Watch Live option. If you're driving, hit that Listen Live link, and if you missed any previous episode of this program, head on over to the podcast link. If you'd like to join our live chat, all you have to do is head on over to your app store, grab the Telegram messaging app, create your profile, and search for Armed American Radio Conversations.
That'll do it. Welcome in. Let's go right to Dr. John Lott, founder, crimeresearch.org. More guns, less crime. John, welcome to the program, my friend. Always a pleasure to have you, brother.
Doing great. Great to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so we have a lot of ground to cover with you, and I'm going to start with a piece that you wrote for Politico at Real Clear Politics, that's extremely disturbing. And it pertains to a friend of ours, Andrew Pollack, who, of course, lost his daughter at Parkland in 2018. And I'm going to just kind of give a run-through on your piece at Real Clear Politics, and then we'll kind of break it down and talk about it because it's very scary and it's very disturbing. And as you point out, being in the public eye brings many challenges, and the Pollack family knows this all too well. In 2018, of course, they lost their daughter, Meadow, in the horrific shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Devastating event, of course, changed their lives forever, and they dedicated their lives to speaking out for school safety and working with law enforcement. But since then, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Pollack and his son Hunter have faced relentless harassment and threats. And John, part of the most disturbing is he moved to rural Oregon after that, but continued to speak out on behalf of school safety and gun rights and criticizing Obama administration policies, et cetera, as you point out in the Real Clear Politics piece. And his conservative views and doing things, as I quote from you, such as speaking at the 2020 Republican National Convention, angered his liberal neighbors who tried to silence him through legal actions. And I mean, they pulled no punches. Dozens and dozens of complaints with government agencies, including building inspectors, animal control, water control authorities, and the sheriff's department, which involved constant visits from these government agencies. And when all of those tactics failed, as you point out, the neighbors then escalated their efforts by filing an ERPO, an extreme risk protection order, ladies and gentlemen, otherwise known, you might know it as a red flag law, against Andrew. He was disarmed by neighbors who was claiming he was a danger and making threats. However, when he finally went to court, the judge dismissed the case without even hearing his defense because the neighbors failed to provide any evidence whatsoever that he had threatened anyone. And from what I understand, John, all of these complaints by the neighbors have been tossed, and he faced some very real threats. I haven't even gotten into the very disturbing aspect of the death threats that his son Hunter was getting. Take us through this because you know Andrew well. This is frightening stuff.
Yeah, it just shows kind of, people talk about some of the problems with red flag laws and others, but Andrew has lived these problems, because they don't have to do anything other than put in a written complaint. The judge doesn't hear Andrew's side of the case at all. They just go and say, he's a threat to us, and the judge takes that and runs with it and impose this extreme risk protection order against Andrew. He was disarmed. One of the things I don't mention in the piece was he also ended up in jail for about 20 hours or something because of that, because he had locked himself out of his home. His wife had the keys. He had to meet her at this is rural Oregon. There's like one mall nearby there. And so they agreed to meet there. And it turns out that the neighbor who had filed the extreme risk protection order was also in the parking lot at the mall. So he pulled in, and she called the police saying, he's violated the protection order here. She claimed he was following her, and the police came and they arrested him and took him to jail. And the bizarre thing is that it was only later that they discovered that, in fact, he'd come in through a different entrance into the mall. It was pretty clear that there's no way that he could have been following her. And, it's just... but beyond that, since he was disarmed, this is rural Oregon. There are mountain lions, there are other wild animals around there. Normally, Andrew would be carrying his handgun with him at all times. But he wasn't allowed to do that because they had taken away his guns. So he's outside of his house, and he runs into a mountain lion, and who was killing his goats, killed some of his goats. Fortunately, his dog was there, and his dog tangled with the mountain lion and was able to protect him. The mountain lion cut up the dog kind of badly, though, and had to have a number of stitches. But that shouldn't have happened. If there had been the extreme risk protection order, Andrew would have been able to go and protect himself. Before all this, there was a property rights dispute. A very left-wing group, 1,000 Friends of Oregon, had helped that lawsuit against him over a property dispute that was there. And he ended up winning that. But all these things have cost him many hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal costs. Finally, as you correctly point out, the extreme risk protection order was tossed because the judge said, look, there's no evidence of any threats. Why did you file this? Didn't even require Andrew to put on a defense. After that was tossed, they brought criminal complaints against him. They claimed that there were 15 criminal complaints against him. Half of them were saying that he was on their property when, in fact, he was on this disputed property that they claimed and had lost the case on, which was completely bizarre. And that ended up being dropped eventually for, that there was no evidence that any of those things that they said, that they claimed to the police that he had done were true. One of the problems that you face with these extreme risk protection orders and other things is that people can lie, and there's really no consequence for people lying. You're virtually never prosecuted for bringing lies against someone. So anyway, it's just, there's just no evidence. So the criminal case never went to trial. It was dismissed without prejudice, without even having to go to trial.
John, was anybody held accountable at all that you know of?
No.
So I guess my next question is...
There's been no consequences.
It's crazy.
There have been no consequences for these individuals. In fact, my understanding is now this craziness still isn't over. They've filed a civil complaint against him, claiming that he has harass them or whatever, and they're asking for civil damages. It's just one thing after another. And the thing is, for most of these things, that it hasn't cost them anything. The extreme risk protection order, the local prosecutor handled that when it went to court. The criminal complaints,
it's crazy.
Didn't cost them anything to deal with that either.
John, hold on.
So,
hold on. When we come back from the break, I've got a few more questions on this, and I want to talk about what happened to his son as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what they think of you. It's just remarkable. It's sad and it's frightening, and there's more to talk about with this when we come back with John Lott after the break. Don't go away.
This segment of Armed American Radio is being brought to you by Mike Lindell and MyPillow. Don't forget to use the promo code AAR at MyPillow.com. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back indeed. Make sure to use that promo code over there at MyPillow.com. Whatever you need, whatever ad you see, just substitute the AAR promo code there, and guess what? You say thank you for supporting Armed American Radio. And right now, and we bought them here at the ranch. I think my wife picked them up just a few days ago. They should be delivering this week at some point, but I think we picked up 10 of those pillows because they're only $14.99. The maximum is 10 you can order. They make great gifts if you got birthdays, relatives, for that matter. If you own a hotel and you need to stock up, now's the time to do it. You can use the AAR promo code and take advantage of all the discounts over there. Welcome back inside the Kahr Firearms Group studios with me, Mark Walters, in front of the SIG Sauer microphone. It's all brought to you by X here at Patriot Mobile Ranch. Greg, real quick, ask me how many cups of Defender coffee I had to start my day today.
Mark, how many cups of Defender coffee did you have to start your day?
None, and it made my day a really long day. I did not start with coffee this morning, and I should have. And ladies and gentlemen, you can. DefenderCoffee.com. I usually get started with a couple days of Defender coffee, and the cool part about Defender coffee is when you drink Defender coffee, you can donate some of the profits to a pro-gun rights organization. In this case, I donate to the Gun Owners of America and to the Second Amendment Foundation. DefenderCoffee.com. And don't forget Heaven's Harvest as well, heavensharvest.com. And use the AAR promo code over there. More about our other partners throughout the rest of the program. Let's go back to the phones. Dr. John Lott, welcome back, my friends. Always a pleasure to have you. John, I got to continue with this because this even escalated. We're talking about Andrew Pollock, Parkland father, ladies and gentlemen, who sadly lost his beautiful daughter, Meadow, in 2018 at Parkland. Andrew's been on the show before, and I want to let you know that I'm going to reach out to Andrew this week and see if we can bring him on the program next week. But his son, Hunter, Andrew, the Broward County Sheriff, John, acted quickly and arrested the guy who was making, I say chilling, but just sick, twisted messages, including, I send you to your dead sister. You gonna die. I'ma kill you. And I guarantee you, if Nicholas didn't shoot her, I'd probably kill her. This is sick, twisted nonsense. But as you point out, thankfully, the Broward County sheriffs acted quickly and arrested this clown, Sajos was his last name, within 5 hours of learning about the threats. Authorities charged him with aggravated stalking after an injunction for protection and intimidation for writing and sending death threats. So this is ongoing 7 years later, John. 8 years later now. This is ongoing, sick, and twisted. Now, I did get a note in the chat from Angeline, and I want to shout her out. And she makes a good point. She goes, I thought Southern Oregon, rural Oregon, was conservative. Why are the neighbors continuing this fight against this man? Do we know anything? Has he been able to discern why they're doing this? And is there somebody funding all of this? Do we know anything?
As it said, most of the costs that they haven't had to bear because prosecutors have carried the load on the extreme risk protection order as well as the criminal cases. Presumably now that they have filed the civil suit, they have to carry the cost for that. But look, these are people that have moved from California. They moved in about the same time that Andrew moved in, but they strongly disliked his politics. Andrew has been in the public eye. He's gone and he spoke at the 2020 Republican National Convention. He's spoken out frequently on school safety, on issues like arming teachers. Going against the Obama administration policies, on this pipeline to prison type thing, where the Obama administration was pushing these policies that they didn't want minorities who are causing troubles at school or other places to be arrested and get a criminal record. So you could see that there'd be some Democrats out there who'd be upset about him strongly attacking the Obama administration. I mean, here you had a situation where Nicholas Cruz, the person who murdered his daughter Meadow, had a long history of run-ins with the police and with school officials, had made many threats, had the sheriff's office come out to his home something like 45 times. He had, really brutally beaten his mom, sent her to the hospital. She had, huge damage done to her head. But yet, even when there were threats at school, even when people felt uncomfortable around him, nothing was done. And so Andrew wrote a book. God only knows how many times he's been on things like Fox News or other news outlets. So he's a very public person there. He ran the Crime Prevention Research Center when I was in Washington, D.C., working in the Trump administration. So I'm very close to Andrew. And here you have a situation where somebody just really disliked his politics. And, I believe, I think the neighbors got help, surely got support from this left-wing group, Thousand Friends of Oregon. When they had the property line dispute, these people would show up in the court, as I understood it. And so, it's really been a mess for him. And of course, as the family, Hunter has spoken out. Hunter has been in the public eye too. And so there you have a situation where, you had this other guy who was threatening Hunter, who wouldn't even know who he was or the family was if they hadn't gone and spoken out publicly about all this.
It reminds me of, I don't remember the name of the movie. There's been a bunch of them like this, but it's like every town official is corrupt, including the sheriff. And you juxtapose that against Broward, where this kid, whoever this guy was, that was making these insidious death threats, these vile, sick, twisted threats, was promptly arrested. Now he's in jail on $1 million bond plus $500,000 on other charges. I don't know if he's got the means to get out, but at least they acted quickly. And it's almost like a nightmarish horror movie where everybody is corrupt. It's crazy. And my heart breaks for him. But I got to tell you, the fact that he continues to fight says an awful lot. It says an awful lot. It really, truly does. John, we're getting ready to take our next break. When we come back, I want to take you to Wyoming and gun-free zones. And you have an answer to a letter to the editor published in the Wyoming's Cowboy State Daily. And interestingly, I covered a piece from Wyoming's Cowboy State Daily on the program on Thursday or Friday. I don't recall which day it was. But we're going to talk about gun-free zones, Wyoming, and a letter to the editor that was written specifically about you that tried to debunk you but couldn't. And John's response put those people in their place. We'll be back with Dr. John Lott right after the break. When we come back, Wyoming, we're coming out to you. Oregon, fix your problems. Come on now. A lot of you listening on a lot of stations in Oregon right now. We'll be right back with John right after the break.
Daniel Defense firearms are guaranteed for life, trusted worldwide, and designed, engineered, and manufactured right here in America. Daniel Defense, freedom, passion, precision.
Yeah, Daniel Defense is freedom, passion, and precision, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure to check them out. Get on the Daniel Defense email list over there, and you can also support the DoubleDFoundation.org. Welcome back to the Kahr Firearms Group Studios. Mark Walters in front of the SIG Sauer mic with you. It's all being brought to you by X Insurance here at the Patriot Mobile Command Center. And I got to tell you, last night I slept because of Patriots Relief. You can do the same thing. And I use that emu oil. Man, that CBD stuff for the oils for pain relief is amazing. Make sure to check it out. Visit patriotsrelief.com, patriotsrelief.com. It works for me. It will likely work for you. Many of you have, and I've heard some great things from you. So please support our partners, patriotsrelief.com, patriotsrelief.com. Let's go back to the phones. Dr. John Lott, welcome back, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Well, thanks for having me on.
All right, John. So, Wyoming. Interesting stuff going on in the great state of Wyoming right now. The governor let a bill go into law without a signature, and I kind of want to get your opinion on that as well. I was discussing that on Friday on the Daily Defense. But gun-free zones are a thing of the past in public buildings now in Wyoming, which is a good thing. But there's also a letter to the editor defending research on gun-free zones. And it was written by a woman by the name of Linda Burt. And Linda Burt criticized your opinion piece, which was with State Senator Chris Steinmetz, claiming that you guys were riddled with errors and it was gun lobby pushing gun bills Wyoming citizens don't want. And here's a part of the letter to the editor. Dear editor, Cowboy State Daily recently published a guest column written by Senator Sherry Steinmetz and John Lott, the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. This column, again, uses the fiction that 94% of mass public shootings occur in gun-free zones. That stat from John Lott and his center has been used endlessly by the right and the gun lobby, as it is the only research that supports their claims. Research done by Lott and the findings he published as a result of his research have been severely criticized by prominent academics and researchers that question the flaws in his work. And she goes on to mention a New Yorker magazine published a piece in an article on you in November of 2022, John, entitled "The Shoddy Conclusions of the Man Shaping the Gun Rights Debate," referring to you. One of the statements made in the column is, quote, "Only at schools where guns are banned have people been wounded or killed in school shootings. Research has totally debunked the claim." She claims there was a peer-reviewed research paper published in The Lancet last year examining active shooting cases and found that such shootings are more likely to occur in areas that allow firearms than those that don't. And she goes on, and you went on to debunk that letter to the editor. What's going on there?
Right. Yeah. No, as you say, Wyoming has finally passed a bill that essentially gets rid of all gun-free zones in the state other than those mandated by the federal government. It's something that they've been pushing. I testified originally back in 2017 when the bills were originally brought up. So it's been a long battle, and I was involved with this. I testified before the State Senate Judiciary Committee. I wrote the op-ed piece with Sherry, the state senator there that you mentioned, and I don't know. There's probably a dozen people during the testimony just before the Senate that mentioned my name, either attacking or using my work that was there in order to make the points that they were making. So, this letter was by somebody who I guess used to run the ACLU in the state there. You just take the one sentence that you quoted from her, that she was criticizing, that where we had in our piece saying only at schools where guns are banned have people been wounded or killed in school shootings, school attacks. It would have been easy if there had been a problem for her to point to even one case with all the, tens of thousands of schools that have armed teachers, some of them over decades. But she couldn't point to one. She just asserted that it was false. But, things like she was claiming that there was an article in The Lancet, a medical journal out of the UK that had, what she's saying, provide peer-reviewed research that that these attacks don't occur in gun-free zones, these mass public shootings. And, it was, I don't know whether she just didn't think anybody was going to check the article, but the article didn't have, first of all, it was a book review. It wasn't a peer-reviewed article. It was a book review about 2 books that weren't peer-reviewed themselves. And it had nothing, more importantly, it had nothing to do with gun-free zones and mass public shootings. It had to do with gun control, but nothing to do with the topics that she was claiming that they showed. And, she referenced the Bloomberg's Every Town's claim that 10 to 20% of mass public shootings, only 10 to 20% occur in gun-free zones. What I tried to point out was that, look, I'm using the FBI's definitions where they talk about, for example, they talk about active shootings occurring in public places, not part of some other types of crimes. The term mass traditionally has been for more people killed. The Bloomberg place, most of their cases involve drug gangs fighting against each other over drug turf, many of them occurring in residences that occur. And I have no problem being worried and concerned about gang fights. But the point is, the reason why the FBI distinguishes attacks that occur in public and not involving some other type of crime is that they realize the causes and solutions for things like somebody going into a mall or a school specifically just to go and kill people is very different than 2 gangs fighting against each other over drug turf that's there. There's a reason why when you have shootings that occur in Chicago, they don't get much attention because the vast majority of those on any given weekend involve gangs fighting against each other to control drug turf. It doesn't get the media's attention as when you're having innocent people that are being gone after. And so it's the same reason why the media separates those that the FBI does. And so, I tried to point out that she doesn't seem to understand kind of what the different definitions were there. And, as far as the article in the New Yorker was basically written up by somebody who worked for Michael Bloomberg's The Trace. My understanding is he was paid $150,000 to spend a year going into my life. He basically was interviewing people I hadn't really dealt with since college. Anyway, it was just kind of a hit piece that they had there. And, it's no more accurate than these Bloomberg numbers on gun-free zones.
A paid
anyway,
hit piece.
It just
go ahead.
What I found gratifying is there are other letters to the editor in the Cowboy State Daily, which is the largest newspaper in Wyoming. There was one by somebody who was the former director for the Wyoming Division of Criminal Investigation, who referenced my work and supported it strongly compared to the attacks that were on it. And, there's other letters from law enforcement that was there. So, the bill passed. It passed overwhelmingly in the state house by a vote of 50 to 10. It passed in the state senate by a vote of 25 to 6. And the thing is, the governor last term had vetoed the same bill.
Now, hold on to that. Hold on to that. When we come back, that's exactly where I want to go. We're going to talk about Governor Gordon in just a second. And I have a pointed question for you on this. I can't wait to get your response, but it's something I discussed on Armed American Radio's Daily Defense. Because the governor didn't sign it into law, which I found interesting. We'll talk about that with John Lott when we come back. Then we'll debunk the guns make us safer myth.
The following segment of Armed American Radio is being brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Visit patriotmobile.com/AAR and use the AAR promo code to get free activation today. Welcome back.
Yeah, patriotmobile.com, the real deal. Patriotmobile.com. Support companies that support you and your lifestyle and your freedoms and your liberties and your rights. Patriot Mobile is one of them, a great American company, patriotmobile.com. And you can visit them, our site directly. A really cool, slick landing page over there. patriotmobile.com/AAR. You can activate a phone over there. You don't have to activate all your lines at one time. It can be expensive sometimes. You can do it one phone at a time like we did here at the ranch. And yeah, we have a ranch. AAR, patriotmobile.com/AAR. Activate a line and get free activation for a month. That's a hell of a deal. John Lott, welcome back in to the Kahr Firearms Group studios with me. Let's go back to this Wyoming deal for a second, because Governor Gordon, as you were alluding to before the break hit us, passed overwhelmingly in the Wyoming State House, but the governor didn't sign it. He let it go into law without a signature. Now, normally speaking, when something like that happens, it's a political move. The governor doesn't want to spend any political capital. It generally means that they might not agree with it, but they know they don't have a veto-proof majority, so they just let it pass into law. It might signal, I don't support this, so I'm not going to put my name to it. Why do you suppose Gordon did that in Wyoming when it passed?
Well, he clearly disliked the bill. He clearly disagreed with it. He vetoed it when it had come up during the previous term. He put out a letter in case there was any question that people have about his position on it. He said he disliked the bill. But look, I mean, you need 2/3 vote to override it. They were well past it. They had a 50-10 margin in the state house. They had a 25-6 margin in the state senate. I mean, that wasn't even remotely close to being, just 2/3. So he saw the writing on the wall. He knew that if he vetoed it, he would be, massively overridden in both the House and the Senate. And so he complained and let it become law, because it would have become law over his veto.
John, are people in Wyoming, lots of trucks and Jeeps out there, are they going to have to get lift kits to be driving through the rivers of blood now?
Right. Well, look, the law that they've adopted now in Wyoming is similar to their neighbor, Utah. Utah, if you have a teacher who has a concealed carry permit, they're allowed to carry. The schools in Wyoming still can go and impose some regulations on it. I hope they're not too restrictive, but people who have concealed carry permits are going to be allowed to carry on school property. And, one of the things I had suggested to people in the state legislature is they should just bring in people from Utah to go and testify and explain what their experience has been. Utah's had this for many years. There's been no attacks where anybody's been killed or wounded in an attack. The issue that you face here is, do you want a school that has a sign in front of it that says the school is a gun-free zone? Or do you want a sign in front of the schools that says, warning, select teachers and staff at this school are armed, are carrying concealed handguns, and will use them to go and protect students and others there at the school? About half the schools in Wyoming have school resource officers in them. But one of the points that's been made there is that school resource officers have an incredibly difficult job. If you have one officer in uniform, that gives these attackers real tactical advantages. They can either move on to another building in the school to go and attack, or they can go and wait for the officer to move to a different location before they attack. Or if they're going to attack where the officer is, who do you think they're going to take out first? Because they know that he's the only person that has a gun. And if they take him out, they're going to have free reign. The benefit that you have with concealed carry is that they don't know who it is that they have to go and try to stop. Who can stop them? They don't know whether it's somebody in front or behind them or to the side. It makes their job much more difficult. And one of the things I pointed out in my testimony to the state Senate was that, it's really amazing to me. These murderers may be crazy in some sense, but they're not stupid. They explicitly talk about in their diaries and manifestos why they picked the targets that they did, even though the media refuses to cover those discussions. And they know their goal is to get media coverage, and they know the more people they kill, the more media coverage that they can get. And they know if they go to a place where their victims aren't able to go and defend themselves, they're going to be able to go and kill more people. So whether it's, cases like the Covenant School shooting or the Buffalo mass murder or many others, we go into this on our website at crimeresearch.org. Time after time, these murderers go and explicitly explain why they pick the targets that they do. And, just one other thing I'll just mention quickly, and that is when you pass the laws that punish people who carry guns on school property, for example, in Tennessee, when they had the Covenant School shooting, it was a 6-year prison sentence that you faced if you or I took a permanently concealed handgun on school property at that time. That's a huge penalty for you or I.
Oh,
for
yeah.
a law-abiding person, it would completely alter their lives. But let's say you're the murderer, and let's say the murderer had lived. She would have been facing 6 life sentences or 6 death penalties. Does anybody really seriously think that taking 6 years away from her 7th life, she'd say, okay, well, I can put up with 6 life sentences or 6 death penalties, but you take 6 years from my 7th life, then that will deter.
Yeah, that's the deal breaker.
Committing the crime. It's just all the penalties do is ensure that the murderer there will be the only person that has a gun, because they face no real penalty, whereas the law-abiding people who obey the law would face huge penalties that would completely alter their lives.
It would wreck their lives. That's hence the term law-abiding.
Yeah.
We want to stay away from the judicial system. It frightens us as law-abiding citizens. We don't want anything to do with it. Now, I know we're getting ready to end this hour, John. I didn't get a chance to go into debunking the guns make us safer myth, but we have plenty of time. It's an evergreen story. We can cover that with you. Maybe we'll do that with you next week on Armed American Radio's Monster Cast. But if you would, we've got 30 seconds. Tell people where they can go find all your cool stuff, because it's all out there for you, ladies and gentlemen. You can read the real data. John, take it away.
Sure. Well, people can find the discussion I had on Andrew Pollack and his son Hunter on our website at crimeresearch.org, as well as all the discussion we've been having about Montana. And right up at the top, we have kind of a deep dive into the FBI's and other data on active shooting cases, which is going to be related to the story that you wanted to get into about, this article, so-called Debunking Guns Make Us Safer myth.
Yeah, John Lott debunks the debunkers who want to debunk John, and they can't debunk him because John debunks them because they're debunkable. Did you get all that, ladies and gentlemen? Armed American Radio's Monster Cast. I see my producer down in Florida who's watching us laughing about that on the other screen. It's great to have you with us, Ryan. All right, guys. John, thank you for being here. crimeresearch.org. John is the real deal, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll talk about that debunking the myth garbage with John next week. Armed American Radio's Monster Cast will be back in the next hour with a classic Armed American Radio Roundtable with Brad, Neil, and Justin. Don't miss it. 6 minutes after the hour, we'll be back on the flip side. Don't go away.
This is Armed American Radio.
If they want to take my guns, they're going to have to bring a station wagon and a whole lot of friends because I'm not giving them anything.
From the Kahr Firearms Group studio
At the Patriot Mobile Communication Center.
on the SIG Sauer Platinum microphone.
Mark, we know they want to take our guns, and now we're going to make them eat it.
Proudly presented to you by X Insurance.
X Insurance.
Here is your host of Armed American Radio, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting for your rights, Mark Walters.
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Armed American Radio's Monster Cast continues. Hour 3, the classic Armed American Radio AAR Roundtable is now upon us. Welcome inside the Kahr Firearms Group studios. With me, I am Mark Walters, filling your prescription for freedom today and every day. 16 years running, coming up in April. April 26th will be our 16th year. April 27th marks the start of our 17th year. It's a remarkable run. Couldn't do it without you and our partners, so please visit all of them at armedamericanradio.com. And we are sitting here at the Patriot Mobile Communication and Command Center in front of this very powerful SIG Sauer microphone being heard on hundreds of radio stations across the nation. Greg in Dallas, Texas, how you doing, brother?
Not too bad. Here we are. Hour 3 gets here quick every week.
I told you, buckle in, ladies and gentlemen. This one's flying right by. Greg, if you would be kind enough to tell people where to watch on all the platforms, get involved in the chat should they want to do that, and then we'll go to the group and have some fun.
All right, sure. If you want to watch the show, just search for Armed American Radio with Mark Walters on Rumble, YouTube, and Fascist Book. Over on X, it's at AAR Mark. The usual suspects on Sunday night are going to be armedamericanradio.org and .com. On the right-hand side of that website, you're going to see the menu icon. Just give that a click, and when that window opens up, you can select that Watch Live option. If you're driving, hit the Listen Live link, and if you missed any previous episode of this program, just head on over to the podcast link. If you'd like to join our live chat, all you have to do is head on over to your app store, grab the Telegram messaging app, create your profile, and search for Armed American Radio Conversations.
Yeah, and that'll do it. And I never mention this as much as I should, and I should. Never miss an episode. If you like the program, and many of you do, we're on hundreds of radio stations, simply subscribe to the podcast at your favorite podcast platform. It's that simple. We're everywhere. And, of course, you can watch the show live. And if you want, you can head over to YouTube. We put an edited version up there. It's a little bit shorter for you. Also over at Rumble, etc. So enjoy the program. Let's get started right now. Let's go to the crew. Let's go to Brad Premo, CEO, Lead Slingers. Brad, how you doing, brother?
Doing great, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for being here as always. Justin Moon, CEO, Kahr Arms. How you doing, Justin? Fan favorite for a reason, brother.
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure. Wouldn't want to do it without you. And Neil McCabe from Parts Unknown, losing his Boston accent. Neil from RedState.com. RedState.com. How you doing, Neil?
Fantastic. Very, very thrilled to be with you tonight and the boys, Mark.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. So if you're watching the show, here's my notes for the group. This is a blank sheet of paper, okay? And it's cool paper because it's a paper you can wipe off here with just a wet cloth, so it's one of those reusable things. Kind of fun. But in other words, I got nothing, no notes. That's what's fun about the roundtable. Brad, I'm going to start with you. I know you saw the Zelensky dust up in the White House at the Oval Office. I know you did. And I know your disdain for what's going on in Ukraine. Would you kindly, in FCC-friendly terms, let us know your thoughts on that, please?
I'm trying to figure out where to start. I mean, honestly, I'll say this at the start of things. I think that I feel sorry for Ukraine. I feel sorry for the people dealing what they're dealing with. I admire the fighting spirit that they have shown. They have completely destroyed the Russian army. Okay, they cannot win. The Russians will not run out of people before the Ukrainians do, and that's what it's come down to. And Zelensky shows up in the White House, won't put on a suit. That shtick got old. A long time ago.
Yep.
And if he says, "Well, I'm at war," well, then put on a uniform, dude. If he's the commander in chief of his military, put on a uniform. But at least act like you care when you're there, trying to get help from us. And then don't sit there and try to make points and argue your side in front of the cameras and make a show out of it when you're here asking for our help. What we're doing, and Trump is 100% right on this, is that what Zelensky is doing and what Europe is doing is they are playing with fire and risking World War III. And the only thing that's going to happen is either this is going to continue to stalemate and we're going to have hundreds of thousands more casualties, or someone's going to feel backed into a corner, or NATO's going to have to get involved, or Europe's going to get involved and try to break that stalemate, and then all hell's going to break loose. And it's going to drag us into it. And I find it highly offensive. You have Democrats that Joe Biden completely, surprise, completely botched the assistance to Ukraine when it would have mattered. The Biden administration tipped off the Russians to the 2023 counteroffensive that, he slow-walked assistance. The Ukrainians even openly said they stopped telling us what they were doing because we kept on telling the Russians what was coming. So, it's been a mess since day one. And, Democrats that are prolonging this, because they can't allow Trump to have any sort of success. And they're willing to, embroil the world in World War III, get our sons and daughters killed. And for what? Probably so they can keep on lining their pockets and so they can score political points. It is infuriating and it's sick.
Yeah,
These people are sick-minded and they have murder in their hearts.
Yeah, the dangerous part about this, ladies and gentlemen, is, Trump doesn't want to get us involved in any World War III. The problem here is if Europe explodes, the world's security and safety is going to depend on the United States. It would be unavoidable for us, and that's what Trump doesn't want to see. None of us want to see that happen. But, Justin, Trump. I like the way Trump drops hints, right? He meets Zelensky outside before they go into the office, and he says, "Oh, look at this. He's dressed up today." He's dropping hints to the guy. You had a reporter ask Zelensky after the fact, "Do you even own a suit? You come into the people's house here, the Oval Office, and you don't even wear a suit. The highest office in the land, do you even own a suit?" But that's an embarrassment, for crying out loud. So, Justin, in FCC-friendly terms, your thoughts on that dust-up in the Oval Office?
Well, I think, the support for the Ukraine war dropped at least 15 points because of Zelensky's demeanor and his actions in the Oval Office. I think Americans took a look at the way he behaved and saw him being very disrespectful to the country that gave him $350 billion. That said, the Ukrainians have fought like lions, but the reality is that this war has made the Russian military more powerful than they were at the beginning of the war. And they have increased their armament, they have improved their tactics, and they are a ruthless killing machine right now. And they have depleted our war inventory, and they have demolished the Ukrainian army, and they have wiped out all of NATO's equipment. If Russia wants to go to, conquer all of Europe, right now there's nothing that can stop them. The only way we could stop them is if America goes to World War III, and, even if it stays conventional, we will leave 5 million dead Americans on the field before we push the Russians back.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And I think that you might even be very conservative in that 15% figure. And I Neil, I want to echo some of what Brad said, and you and I will get started, and then we'll likely come back to you because we've got about a minute here, but before the break. But Brad was alluded. This is a war of attrition at this point, and there's no way Ukraine can win a war of attrition against Russia. They're not going to run out of people. Ukraine will. It doesn't matter how much money we throw at them. So you heard Justin's response and you heard Brad's response. I'll turn it over to you, and I'll let you take us to the break. Have at it until I have to cut you off, brother.
Answer, of course, coming up on the break is that both Hitler and Napoleon said the same thing. I can't believe how bad these Russian soldiers are. I can't believe how easy it is to beat the Russian army. And both guys got crushed, and basically Russia not only ended the campaign, the military campaigns, but ended the careers of Napoleon and Hitler, and that was it. And so, when Hitler committed suicide, it was because the Russians were knocking on the door. We weren't there, because we, for whatever reason, allowed the Russians to go to Berlin first. But like Brad said, it's horrible. It's a tragedy. But what are you going to do? At some point, the guy doesn't want to listen. And, he said, and as I've been going through the different statements and the different reports that came through, is that Treasury Secretary Bessent went in 2 weeks ago to cut a deal. He said, no, I want a meeting at the White House. Vance and Rubio met with the guy 2 weeks ago in Munich. He says, no, I'll sign it when I get to the White House. You had Mike Walls, the National Security Advisor, working with them. You had General Kellogg, Keith Kellogg, the special envoy for Russia and Ukraine. All these guys are working, and they say, hey, if you come to the White House, it better be to sign a deal. The guy shows up at the White House, and he says, I'm not going to sign a deal because I want U.S. troops. And Trump's like, you aren't paying attention, son.
Yeah, you are definitely not paying attention. Neil, welcome back. Guys, welcome back. Thank you, Neil. I'm a step ahead of myself. We're going to a break, not returning from a break. Armed American Radio's Monster Cast will continue on the flip side of this break. We'll be back with the crew, Brad, Neil, and Justin. Don't go away.
it's Mike Gallagher wanting to let you know that the crew of the Desperado Sport Fish in Virginia Beach, Virginia supports Armed American Radio and the Second Amendment, and I'm right there with them. Now back to Mark Walters.
Yeah, welcome back. Armed American Radio's Monster Cast, the classic Armed American Radio Roundtable, continues here in the Kahr Firearms Group studios. Mark Walters in front of the very powerful SIG Sauer microphone, all being brought to you by X Insurance here at the Patriot Mobile Ranch. Please go out of your way, visit all of our partners, and support them for supporting this program. We've got a number of news stations around the country. You know who you are. The list is too long. Welcome in. Congratulations. Thanks for taking the program. Hope you're enjoying it. And to those of you that are also picking up the Daily Defense, we appreciate that as much too. The show just continues to grow every single month. Welcome back to the crew. Let's keep going. Brad Premo, I'm going to jump over to you right now. I'll let you put an exclamation point on what we were just wrapping up. You heard Neil's response, and then we'll continue to go around the table. But anything else you want to add to the whole Ukraine thing before we move on?
Just again, Donald Trump is right. Imagine that. This man is doing the hard work, and he's taking a lot of flack right now unfairly from a bunch of women in Democrats who would never even think about stepping foot on a battlefield. They have no problem sending other people's sons. And I find it, I cannot explain to you how offended I am. Just the thought of it. It's just highly offensive to me. And I'm grateful that we have Donald Trump because, today I was just kind of daydreaming and thinking, what kind of situation would we be in if Kamala Harris was sitting in that seat?
Oh,
I shudder to think.
Oh, good heavens! That's a great point. I try not to think about that because I've put her back in the rearview mirror. But that's a great point. Let's go there for a second. Justin, can you imagine in this situation if Kamala Harris were running the ship? Well, she wouldn't have been running the ship anyway. I correct myself there. Whoever would have been running the ship, whoever was running it with Biden, likely Obama. But can you imagine the shape we would be in right now if Kamala Harris were at the helm, Justin?
Well, we wouldn't be able to imagine, Mark, because we would both be sharing a cell in the concentration camp.
You've been pretty adamant about that. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, let me make this very clear. If the Democrats had won this election, they'd have put their boot on your neck. There's no question about that. Neil McCabe, if Kamala Harris were running the show. Thanks, Brad, for bringing that up, by the way. I really didn't want to talk about her, but you brought it up, so we're going to go there. Neil, can you imagine the mess we would be in?
It's difficult for me to sort of contemplate because my take on it is that 40 years later, I am actually disappointed sometimes that Reagan beat Carter because a second term of Jimmy Carter would have driven things so far off the rails that there would have been such a collapse of society and the economy that we would actually be forced to do all of the reforms and restructuring that Reagan tried to do for 8 years but couldn't. So Reagan was able to change things,
right?
So that so that the wheels didn't fall off the cart till 2008. So Reagan bought us 20 good years or 30 good years or whatever. And it's like, with Harris, if Harris had been there, for Harris, former years of Harris would have brought back some things I was looking forward to, like red states breaking off from the country, right? Like forming like an SEC country, I was looking forward to all sorts of chaos and collapse. It's there's a lot of crazy things that were going to happen, and I was looking forward to see it. Unfortunately or fortunately, now we have Trump, and Trump's actually fixing the problems. He's tightened the border. I think they had 2 or 3 people try to cross the border yesterday or something.
Yeah.
It's like it's crazy that they talked about that bipartisan border bill where they were going to cap it at 2,500 a day, right? So, yeah, it's and the thing about Trump, where and I flash back to Reagan, or even Trump's first term, is that Trump learned very quickly that he is on the clock, and one of the things he did almost immediately was take down the government lawyers, even Republican lawyers, Federalist Society lawyers, because if you remember back in the first term, there were White House lawyers. The White House counsel, he sat down for 3 days or something with Mueller. Like, these guys were actually testifying against, White House lawyers were actually testifying against Trump in the second impeachment. And so these guys had to be all flushed out. And we're seeing it in the military, especially the Pentagon. We saw Friday that the 3-star general Crossland, who was the head of the Defense Health Agency, she was just given the boot. And so, like, the purge continues, and I just want it to continue.
It's going to continue. I don't see this guy slowing down at all. Brad, Liz Cheney put a tweet out on the 28th. I know it's Liz Cheney put a tweet out on the 28th. Let me read it to you. Generations of American patriots from our revolution onward have fought for the principles Zelensky is risking his life to defend. But today, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance attacked Zelensky and pressured him to surrender the freedom of his people to the KGB war criminal who invaded Ukraine. History will remember this day when an American president and vice president abandoned all we stand for. Now, in my book, Wyoming, you're listening, this woman's a traitor from the word go. Yet she never lets us down, Brad. Both her and her dad, they don't care. It's just a war machine to these people. Just an absolute war machine to these folks. Your thoughts on what she put out? Just curious.
Well, I think we should completely.
Brad, go ahead, and then we'll go to Justin. Everybody wants to talk about Liz Cheney. I love it.
Yeah. This is completely mischaracterizes the whole meeting. I mean, the offer on the table is we're not just taking minerals from these guys. We are offering to help them develop their mineral industry. Of course, we get a piece of it. We help them do it. They make money off of it. And us being invested in their country is a security guarantee. You know, both sides win, and we stop this war. I mean, that's how we do it. And she's trying to characterize us as Donald Trump trying to rob this guy, and he's standing up for his people. Zelensky royally screwed his people in that meeting. And I read on the news about 4 hours ago, he says he wants to sign the deal now. I hope it's not too late, but the price is probably going to go up on him. He needs to learn.
Yeah, I think the price is going to go up on him. He heard himself. Justin, you want to jump in? Liz Cheney, traitor in my book. When you hear something like that from her, what do you think?
I think we should send both Dick and Liz to Ukraine to go fight on the front line.
Well, you know, that was my response. Take your traitor blank to Ukraine and get dirty yourself. You get more reprehensible by the day. Just go away. Sadly, these people don't realize, ladies and gentlemen, that these tweets, X, whatever you want to call it, are not going to age well for them in the time of Trump. I'll get, when we come back from this break, I'll get Neil's thoughts on that. Then I want to talk about the quote-unquote State of the Union and what we're going to expect to hear from Donald Trump. It's really not a State of the Union, except it is a State of the Union, but it's really not. But Trump will make it a State of the Union, and he will use those words, the state of our union, and he'll also say golden age and all that fun stuff. There's no question about it. We'll be back. 2 more segments with the crew. Don't go away.
following segment of Armed American Radio is being brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Visit patriotmobile.com/AAR and use the AAR promo code to get free activation today. Welcome back.
Yeah, that'll do it. Use that promo code AAR, get free activation. That's a beautiful thing. It's actually not free activation. We're going to have to change that rejoin. It's now a free month. A free month from Patriot Mobile. Also, some of our partners, heavensharvest.com. I told you if you guys are going to be doing any fishing, camping at all this spring, many of you are. Heaven's Harvest has those 15-minute heat-in-the-bag meals. They are outstanding. I have a bunch of them. We've tried them at the ranch. We love them. Heavensharvest.com. Heavensharvest.com. Use the promo code over there, AAR, and find what kind of deals they've got. And believe me, spring's coming. We've got nasty weather rolling in from Greg's area in Texas coming up this week through Wednesday. Tornado season's well underway. If you don't have any food supplies, you should reconsider that, okay? Trust me, Heaven's Harvest has got you covered, and you will feel better. You will sleep better knowing that you have some. We've got at least a couple years' worth of food here at Armed American Radio Ranch at the Patriot Mobile Command Center. And we do. We sleep better. We know we have it. It just makes you feel better. HeavensHarvest.com. Don't forget Bud's Gun Shop, budsgunshop.com, our exclusive online retailer, and all of our great partners, including GoatGuns.com. Feed your new addiction. GoatGuns.com. GoatGuns.com. They make great gifts coming up for anything that you have in your life, birthdays, whatever it may be, just for yourself. GoatGuns.com. And don't forget your Emerson knife. If you want an Emerson knife, here's one right in front of me. Boom, just snapped it open for you. We use this thing here every single day, and I've got a bunch of these, and I've got some really nice collectibles over there, including some with wood handle that came from George Washington, some trees over at his estate. Remarkable, cool stuff over there. EmersonKnives.com. Use the promo code AAR. AAR. Neil McCabe, let's go back to you now. The Liz Cheney deal. I got to go there with you. Just tell me what you think of Liz and Dick Cheney, because they're just tied at the hip. Neil, do we have you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go for it, brother.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Talk to me about Liz
All
Cheney.
right, so Liz Cheney was the only congressperson from Wyoming because it only has one. It only has one it doesn't have the population for more than one congressperson, member of Congress. But increasingly, parts of Wyoming were becoming sort of commuter suburbs of Colorado. And so some of all that bad stuff that was happening in Colorado was spilling into Wyoming. And so, I don't believe she was sincere at all. I think she was responding to political pressures of leftists moving into Wyoming because it was too expensive to live in Denver. And I think that she thought that there was such thing as a post-Trump Republican Party or post-Trump America. Like, she thought that this guy was going to go away. And so she was making her bet. And so it wasn't something she did sincerely or with any kind of integrity. It's not that something that she actually believes. It was just she was at the gambling table. She was at the roulette wheel, and she put all of her chips on Trump goes away. And when he does go away, I will be the one who said I called it. And there's a lot of people who thought Trump was going away. Zelensky probably thought Trump was going away. And I've got to believe that there are people, he met with a whole group of senators before he went to the White House. Mm-hmm. And I got to believe these senators were telling him, don't take the deal. Trump's a stooge. Don't fall for it. And all it's like they fed this sort of this ignorance of Zelensky. Like, it's like he has no idea that the ground has shifted below him. And so, what are you going to say? Liz Cheney is in private life, just like Mike Pence is in private life, just like, Paul Ryan's in private life, just like Leader McConnell is going to go to private life. And soon Zelensky will be in private life. It was already floated 2 weeks ago that the guy was prepared to resign. He was asked again recently if he was going to resign. And basically, you have Lindsey Graham, who, a lot of people don't like Lindsey Graham. I admire Lindsey Graham. Because he was so great during the Clinton impeachment. What he did against Clinton was basically he could rob a bank for all I care, for all the things he did during, to stand up to Bill Clinton to lead that impeachment. But, Lindsey Graham's the reason why Brett Kavanaugh is on the Supreme Court. Lindsey Graham he makes a lot of noise and a lot of hoo-ha-ha, but in the end, he backs Trump and he gets along with Trump. And I think that, Lindsey Graham went into that White House to sort of watch the fireworks, and he expected to watch the signing ceremony. And Lindsey Graham criticized Zelensky and basically said the United States can't even deal with Zelensky anymore. And when when Zelensky loses Lindsey Graham, the party is over. The lights are on, and you got to go home because people are sweeping up and folding up the tables and chairs.
I think a lot of conservatives have a love-hate relationship with Lindsey Graham. I'm certainly one of them. He's done some great things. I mean, look, I've been fair to McConnell as well. I can't stand McConnell. It's time to go home. But he's done some great things in the past that worked. All you got to do is look at Garland, the Supreme Court. That stands out. He's destroyed his legacy at this point, I think. But nonetheless, you got to give him some accolades. I'm not going to hate all over Lindsey Graham because I like some of the things that he's done, and I don't like other things that he's done, so I'll leave it at that. Brad Premo, let's switch gears now to what is no doubt going to be a State of the Union. Brad, there's about 8 Democrats right now that I'm aware of that are going to boycott a sitting U.S. president who is going to talk to a joint session of Congress Tuesday evening. What does that say? Have these people just not figured it out? What is it that Democrats can't even sit in the room with someone who they oppose in the United States, which has been our system of government since its founding?
Yeah, all they have is virtue signaling at this point. They have to be performative because they have no real power. And, I think they're still scrambling and confused. And by all reports, they still don't know what to do about Donald Trump. It's really amazing to kind of watch, and even to go back all these years, they really had no plan for Hillary Clinton losing in 2016. And they got their feet back under them in enough time to steal an election and get away with it. But, they put an Alzheimer's patient in office and a mentally deficient woman as the vice president, and that backfired on them, and they were left with nothing. And so now here we are. They're completely rudderless and broken, and so all they can do is just pretty much just all over but the crying for them. Their money's drying up, their support's drying up. I think that midterms are probably going to be a bloodbath for them, and I can't wait for it.
I hope you're right about that. Justin, I don't care if they all stay home. I couldn't care less. But what's going to be really telling is when Trump talks about immigration, the Democrats will stay seated, which will signal their hatred of a closed border. None of this is going to age well for them in the age of Trump, Justin. Again, have they just not figured it out? Have they not read the memo? They didn't open the envelope?
Oh, I think that they're just panicking right now because probably more than half of them were on Epstein's Island meddling with kids.
Well, that we're all disappointed that part of the list didn't come out. But you expect to see that sometime soon? Because I'm with you on that. I believe there's a lot of frightened people in Hollywood and Washington, D.C. right now, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, the New York guy were hiding all the data there, but it looks like Pam's going after it, so I think she'll eventually get it. And when she does, I think they're all toast.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that. Neil, is it all going to come out?
No. And, it's just one of those things.
You don't think we're going to see that list?
No, we're not going to see that list.
Why would you say we're not going to see the list?
I don't know. I've just been burned so many times before, and I'm still waiting to figure out who gave the order not to send the troops to rescue the people under fire in Benghazi. I'm still waiting to figure out, to find out, what was the mob and the CIA up to with JFK. I'm still trying to figure out what happened with Pearl Harbor. Did FDR knew that thing was coming?
You bring up great points. Let me stop you because of the break, but I want to address that. That's interesting. I want to get your thoughts on all of that when we come back, ladies and gentlemen. One more segment left in a classic Armed American Radio Roundtable with the crew: Brad Premo, Neil McCabe, and Justin Moon, CEO of Kahr Arms.
When performance counts, there
Dr. Sebastian Gorka letting you know that the Desperado Sport Fishing Crew in Virginia Beach, Virginia supports Armed American Radio and our right to bear arms. Now, back to Mark Walters.
All right, guys, final segment here in the Kahr Firearms Group studios with you on a classic Armed American Radio Roundtable with Brad, Neil, and Justin. Welcome back. Of course, I am Mark Walters, sitting in front of the powerful SIG SAUER microphone here at the Patriot Communication Mobile Command Center. Yeah, we'll cut something. Well, it's mobile because we can get around. So wherever I go, we bring the command center with us. It's all being brought to you by the great X Insurance. Make sure to check them out at xinsurance.com. One final mention, you can visit all of our partners at armedamericanradio.com. Please support them for supporting this program over all of these years. Brad, let me jump over to you. Greg and I were having an interesting conversation during the break I want to bring to the airwaves. Based on what we heard from Neil, and he's absolutely correct. We're all cynics because of what we've seen over many, many decades in Washington. We're at a point where we don't ever expect to get the truth. And we haven't fought back long or hard enough because I don't think we realized how deep the deep state is. Kash Patel is very well aware of that, and he's a prime example. And by that I mean, this is a guy who's plugged into the deep state. Read his book. It's fascinating. Even him at the head of the FBI, it's going to take him a long time to root this deep state out. So somebody like Pam Bondi, we're talking about the Epstein list and everything else. I think there's a little bit of naivety here. I think somebody like Bondi comes in. I'm not going to throw her under the bus yet. But if she deserves to be, we will certainly do that. And time will tell. But I think there's a little naivety here. She comes into Washington talking a big game. I get that. I'm the head of the DOJ. I'm going to get these answers. And guess what? She's not getting those answers. And I don't think she realized until now just how deep the deep state goes. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I don't think so. I'd just like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember about Bondi. I mean, she's been on the job for what, like a week, maybe 10 days? And even Elon has pointed out, and people are surprised about this, that just because you get put in charge of something in D.C., you don't get instant power. You still have, thousands of people underneath you that all have their own ideas. And frankly, like, you can't possibly see what all of them are doing at the same time. And so you actually have to build your own power in the agency that you're actually in charge of. And so that's what she's working on. And frankly, like, with all the rot that was going on at DOJ and then for Patel at the FBI and the politicalization of those agencies, leftist politicalization, they got a lot of cancer to cut out. And, some of it's, you got to be wondering, like, okay, where do we start?
Yeah.
Just figuring that piece out. So, I'm not real convinced we're ever going to get anything out of the Epstein files. And I think because if there was anything all that sensational, it was destroyed a long time ago. Something that radioactive doesn't just get left there for someone else to find. So I think that ship has sailed, but they still have a lot of work to do because obviously there's some people in the Southern District of New York that need to be probably put in chains.
Well, no doubt about it. Justin, what do you think on that? I mean, again, I'm going to give Bondi some slack here until she doesn't deserve any slack. And I agree with Brad here. She hasn't been on the job that long, but I do believe there's a little bit of naivety. She gets into Washington and all of a sudden realizes, ruh-roh, this is deeper than I thought. But the cynic in us, and no one more cynical than you, I mean, do you think we'll ever get the truth on this, ever, no matter who's in office there?
The Epstein files are basically the ring of power in the Lord of the Rings saga. It's the evil ring which controls the world, and that's more valuable than gold to the intelligence agency. So it's the information is not gone. It's somewhere in a silo, and I do believe Trump's intends to destroy the ring of power there.
I hope you're right about that. I don't know how long it will take. Neil, that ring of power that Justin is talking about, and it's not just U.S., it's global. This is not just confined to the United States. The question is, Neil, and we heard your response earlier, I mean, do you not believe we're going to see any of it? I'm with you on that. We're all just supposed to accept the Warren Commission report. We could go way back, all right? But those are some famous examples. We're just supposed to accept MLK, everything. And we're not. We know better than that.
The fact of the matter is that everything we need to know about Jeffrey Epstein is pretty much in the open record anyway. And there's a lot of names and things that, but basically the general outlines of the narrative are there. And the flight logs were released actually, years ago.
Yeah.
And so we can go through the names. And so, there's more stuff to come out, but we know what the general outlines are. And we basically, people just have to dig and connect the dots. But, we still don't know. We still haven't seen the surveillance camera film of when he died, when he hanged himself. Mm-hmm. We were told they were accidentally deleted.
Yeah.
Like we can't even get the surveillance of the most at the time he was the most famous and notorious prisoner in U.S. custody, and we can't even get the video of him hanging himself as two security guards fell asleep.
Yeah, we're supposed to buy this. This is the gaslighting that I'm talking about. So, Brad, let me jump over to you because time's going to get away from us. Are we going to believe it when it comes out anyway? Likely not. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I mean, that's kind of like one of the tragedies that we're living in is that, we can't even trust our own eyes sometimes. And so when we see the list, there's probably or when we see whatever information, we're going to wonder, is this everything or is there something more? But, Neil's right. And I think maybe the only other thing that comes out about this was, maybe we do find out. I mean, it's known that Epstein is basically running a blackmail operation. I mean, is blackmailing these people? Well,
he likely was.
Who was he? Yeah, well, who was he blackmailing for? I think that's the $1 million question because Jeffrey Epstein wasn't the only one benefiting from that blackmail. I think he had somebody that was even handling him, and he was the one. He was the point man. So I think maybe if there's anything sensational, then we might find out. We might find out who was behind Epstein.
Yeah, Justin, will you believe anything when it comes out? If they put it out tomorrow and say this is it, this is everything, you've got it all, will you believe that?
Oh, I'll believe it when Comey gets indicted. I think if Comey gets indicted, we know the gig is up on Epstein. All the files are coming out.
That is one among many that I would love to see be indicted. There's no question about it. I hope he can't sleep at night. That guy is a rat all the way from the bottom of the hole. Neil, I'll just leave it with you before we end the hour. Will you believe it?
30.
Well, the proof is in the pudding. I think that if we had any kind of shot of getting the truth about Epstein, it's going to be with Trump, Kash Patel,
agreed,
and Pam Bondi. And these guys are tough as nails, and they've been through it all. And this is not the same crew that was with Trump in the first term. I mean, imagine Trump's first Secretary of State was a guy named Rex Tillerson.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. It remains to be seen, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to have to watch it unfold, and you're going to have to decide whether or not to believe your lying eyes. It's pretty much that simple, because they're going to tell you one thing, and you're going to have to figure it out for yourself. However, we're smart enough to figure it out. At least we'll know we'll have that gut sense that we're not getting the truth, because that's the way we've had to live in this country for years. Mainstream media, everybody's been gaslighting you from every topic there is,
30.
including gun control. Folks, we're going to get up and do it again tomorrow precisely because they don't want us talking about all this stuff. Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow. So until we meet again, carry on, carry often, carry absolutely everywhere. Never, ever, ever leave your cave without your club. Enjoy your day. Stay safe. See you on the radio tomorrow, guys. Thanks for being here, everybody. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in today. Appreciate it very much. Everybody stay safe tonight. Enjoy your day. We still have a lot of work to do here in the studio. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow, 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock Eastern time, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday. Make sure to subscribe to Armed American Radio's podcast. If you don't already, please do. You can, whatever favorite podcast platform you have, Armed American Radio is there. Enjoy your day. Stay safe. Thanks for being here again, folks. Support all of our partners, and we'll see you on the radio tomorrow. Have a great night.